Hello, Peoria Heights, and welcome to another stimulating and provocative and very green Tower Talk. We're back where it all began for Tower Talk. Mike Phelan, our very Irish mayor of Peoria Heights.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Mike.
Good to see you again. And so a ton of stuff is happening in the Heights, and we tend to say that a lot anymore, but we want to focus on one of those things, the comprehensive plan we launched last week with a series of public meetings. Why don't you give us a little background about this comprehensive plan and why the Heights is doing this?
Well, so as you know, there is a lot happening in the Heights. We've had great success when it comes to development. The most important priority for myself, and I believe I can speak for the board, are the neighborhoods and the people who live here. That's our primary concern, our primary goal. So we went through a period of time where we had to make some decisions about how we would go about doing what I call a deep dive into the community. So we hired a company, a couple of companies actually are partnering on this project. Levine is a company that's worked all over the United States as far as community plans. And then they partnered with a local company, Farnsworth. So the two of them are jointly spearheading this effort, and the village is investing, for us, quite a bit of money in this project. And again, it's a deep dive into the community. We're engaging both the business community and the residents, and we hope to have a document that helps us look out not just 5 years, but even 20 and 25 years into the future. So we want to know from the residents what they want their village to look like in 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm. So why is it important to do this? There's development happening in the Heights now, and so why go that extra step and hire this urban planning consultant out of Chicago and then Farnsworth Group, the architectural firm here in Peoria?
Well, we have an elected body here, a village board, and I serve as mayor. We make decisions, routine decisions, but this is very important that the public get to weigh in on specifically on how they want their village to look again. So what are your priorities? Is it streets? Is it sidewalks? Transportation? Is it lighting? Is it green space? And so on. So having public forums where people can weigh in individually, and we've already done that. We kicked this off with a coffee with the mayor a few weeks ago. We had about 100 people show up to that event. And then last week we had a stakeholders meeting, and we had about 30 people show up to that. The following night we met at the Peoria Heights Grade School and had about 100 people show up for that event, where we broke into small groups. And breaking into those small groups has helped us, along with taking online surveys, has helped us to get good information from the people who live here and the people who do business here.
So it's really about the public input. This is not a top-down situation, a process. This is really a bottom-up process, because
exactly,
this community belongs to its residents, and so they should have a stake in this plan.
Exactly,
right?
And one of your tasks here at the village has been to get more information out to the community and gather that information and help us as a government do a better job of engaging the citizens.
So now you've worked with Levine before.
Yes.
But this plan is different because it takes a look at the village as a whole as opposed to a slice of the village.
Exactly. They did a corridor study for us on Prospect Avenue, and that's a document we refer to all the time. They did some small area studies, but those were primarily focused towards transportation and business. This is specifically focused towards neighborhoods and neighborhood issues, and so that's the difference.
Sure. So how long do you expect this comprehensive plan to take?
Well, we hope by the end of the year to have a finished document.
So December then?
Yeah. So
a finalized plan for the public to review in December, with adoption probably the following spring, correct?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. So last week, as I mentioned, we had the public kickoff of the comprehensive plan, and we convened an advisory committee and a business focus group, and we did one-on-one interviews with local stakeholders. And we also had a big public meeting at Peoria Heights Grade School, which was kind of a brainstorming session in which participants envisioned and mapped out what the Heights could be. So how'd that go in your view? You know, the meeting at the grade school in particular. How was the attendance there?
Well, I think the public participation up to this point has been excellent, and we're trying to reach a diverse group of people, both business and residents. We're trying to reach different income levels. We're trying to reach different neighborhoods, both, you know, the Peoria Heights sits along 29, the Peoria Heights sits along War Memorial Drive, and the Peoria Heights sits around the central Prospect area. So I think we've done a pretty good job of having different groups of people and stakeholders participate in this. And the stakeholders meeting alone was comprised of township and school, lots of school board members, school superintendent. So we're trying to gather information from not just village government, but our other partners and stakeholders in the area as well.
Sure. So a number of themes seemed to emerge out of last week's sessions, like the need for more middle-class, family-sized housing, 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, that sort of thing. Did any of that surprise you? Anything that came out of those meetings that you really did not expect?
Not really, and I think we all recognize that bringing back the middle class is critical to Peoria Heights, and very important in so many ways. Putting kids in our schools, people coming back to raise families here is very important. So, as I had mentioned, this planning process is a top priority. One of the top goals, I think, out of this process would be to create more affordable housing and to bring back middle-class families. But as you know, that involves resetting the market, which isn't easy. So.
No, that's right. So I want to explore some of those other areas of consensus so far. And I say so far because we're still in the early information gathering phase. But one of the things that really cropped up repeatedly was the need for more youth recreation activities, community center, a splash pad, etc. So, you know, we heard over and over again, you know, that the local kids need something to do. Some mentioned the need for a community garden. Do you agree with all of that from your sense? And I know it's not your plan. You're in a listening mode too, but you know, just you've lived here a long time, your entire life.
I certainly agree with it,
Yeah.
and that comes back to quality of life, and it's very important to me and the board that we have a very high quality of life here. But what we need to hear from the citizens is to prioritize all the. So, you know, I personally am interested in middle class housing, green space, quality of life, transportation, enhancing the trail. But so what are the priorities of all these goals?
Right.
Are they high priorities? Are they medium priorities? Or priorities but maybe lower priorities?
Sure.
So I was thrilled that improving the quality of life came out in a lot of the sessions we've already had.
Sure. So we heard a lot about you know, more basic infrastructure in the core neighborhoods, sidewalks, curbs, street lights. But of course, all those things come with a price tag. And so what's your view of all that? Obviously, some of the recommendations going to come out of this report are going to require some spending of tax dollars.
You know, the village financially is in a much better place today than it's been in probably decades. Previous leaders through the 80s, the 90s, and after had to deal with the leaving of the Pabst Brewery and 800 union jobs there in a company that paid a tremendous amount in property tax and other taxes. And after they left, things were difficult for the village. And so those mayors and those boards had to scramble to really. They had a lot of challenges. So the money wasn't there to maintain sidewalks. The money wasn't there to maintain streets. The money wasn't there to maintain the water infrastructure. So all of those are very important too. That we have we have an aging infrastructure in a lot of ways, and prioritizing that and establishing those goals is critical as well.
Yeah, I mean, I heard, for example, that you know, just to replace a lot of the water mains and other pipes, you're looking at upwards of $30 million.
Exactly.
To do the entire system, right?
We've got great water here, but and a great water department. The people that work for the village. The challenge is, you know, pumps, and the challenge is water mains that need to be replaced. That some are decades and decades old, maybe even 100 years old in some cases.
So another thing we heard a lot about was a desire to link upper and lower Peoria Heights in some concrete fashion. Galena Road to the top of the bluff, basically. But there seems to be a very strong desire for development along the riverfront. What's your view of that?
This is an untapped area of Peoria Heights. You know, probably the river, and going back in the history of Peoria Heights, it was the river and the bluffs that brought people to Peoria Heights in the first place. Now, since we're in the pipeline for the capital bill, that Governor Pritzker's capital bill, he was here last year to announce that we're receiving $68.5 million for the improvement of Galena Road. We all would agree, I think, that that is a very unsafe road right now. What we'll have as a finished product is a safer road with bike lanes, and that will slow traffic down and make that area much more appealing for both commercial development but for housing. So I see that area as really ripe for family housing development in a lot of ways. But currently, you know, it's unsafe to turn left, it's unsafe to turn right on that road, and it may take us a couple of 3 years to get a completed project, or working with IDOT, as you know, to try and speed that up, the project itself. But that will create so much opportunity for Peoria Heights in that neighborhood. Now, a part of that is enhancing the connectivity between that part of Peoria Heights and Upper Peoria Heights. So right now it's limited to War Memorial Drive, and it's limited to Forest Park Drive. The board and other stakeholders have talked about enhancing connectivity, possibly through hill hikers or trams that would, or an enhanced trail system to get people from that part of Peoria Heights up to the bluff. So,
sure. Good. So, you know, the village of Peoria Heights has made great strides in the downtown corridor over the years along Prospect Road, and everybody is pretty well aware of that. But we also heard a desire from some to narrow Prospect, to put it on a road diet, so to speak, and to extend the attention that area gets in terms of walkability and maintenance and aesthetics, flowers, landscaping, that sort of thing, to the other commercial corridors in the village. Do you view that as a doable thing?
Well, we'll have to investigate that. And you asked me earlier if I was surprised by anything, and I guess I forgot that piece. So I was somewhat surprised that so many people mentioned the Prospect Corridor, road diet, and walkability at the grade school last week. So, you know, I think we need to look into that further and get more public input on that issue.
Okay. So there was also some talk about establishing a firmer identity for the Heights, independent of the city that surrounds it. So the Heights has a character all of its own, and one most folks seem to want to retain. You know, both now and at the end of this comprehensive plan, if there are to be changes, they still want to retain that's really special, unique flavor the Heights has. So I guess I'd ask you what you think the Heights identity is now and what you would like it to be.
Well, I think we've got a lot of history here in Peoria Heights, and we want to always remember that history. And the way I sum it up is that there's lots of communities in this big central Illinois region, this 3-county region, and we're a little sister among other sisters, and some of those cities are much larger than we are. But I think we're a very important player in the region, business-wise, and in a lot of ways. I think we play a very important role. We want to grow the community, but we are always going to be a smaller community, always remembering and having respect for our history, where we've been. And the village has evolved in a lot of ways since it was first incorporated. But keeping our identity is very, very important. You know, we've got our own police department, own fire, own public works, our own library, our own school system. Village residents have always been very proud of those groups of people, those entities.
Good. So how about more prominent signage, you know, that lets motorists in particular know when they're in the Heights, because the boundaries kind of weave all over the place. You know, you're on War Memorial Drive, and most people probably think they're in Peoria through that entire stretch, and they're really not. They're in Peoria Heights. Do you see that as something that you might be able to accomplish?
I think it is important because a lot of people, as you stated, don't always know when they're entering or leaving Peoria Heights. I would maybe challenge the Chamber of Commerce to take that effort as far as maybe signage coming into the village, but there have been people like Rob Matheson who have been advocating for a much more dramatic entryway into the village, especially on Prospect Avenue. So that could include a trailhead, maybe an archway. You know, we want people to dream and to dream big, but I know Robbie's been really talking about that in a lot of ways. So those are things, you know, we want to bubble up from the ground up.
So there were a lot of other issues, more parking downtown, reinvestment in the water system, the need for a business incubator, development of the back part of the old Pabst property. I want you to feel free to address any of those if you wish, but I'm also kind of curious whether there was anything you didn't hear that you thought you would.
You know, nothing comes to mind that I didn't hear, but I do want to talk about the importance of possibly a business incubator. And another one of my priorities is continuing to bring head of household jobs to the village. So we are fortunate to have a fantastic service industry, restaurant industry, and the arts are, you know, really taking off here as well. But bringing head of household jobs, and we may not ever bring back the 800 jobs we lost through Pabst, but Sherman's is a fantastic employer with over 100 jobs here, head of household jobs. The development of the Pabst campus, and I'm not sure everyone realizes that's still about 10 acres of land for mixed use development. That's also one of our top priorities, getting that land developed with housing. But we're constantly looking for companies and speaking with companies that could be the right fit to locate in Peoria Heights that would bring jobs here for people. And I think we're poised perfectly for certain tech companies that could come and where people could walk to work. You know, the trail system is fantastic, the walkability is fantastic, the restaurants are all already here in place, and you know, there's other communities in the area that where I think their strategy is to build it and hope they come. We already have all the things in place and all the amenities in place for people to locate their business here, to locate their family here. So it's continued marketing of the village and finding the right partners. But the Pabst parcel is really special. I think it's one of the most valuable pieces of property in all of Central Illinois, not just Peoria Heights. So we're trying to foster the development of that parcel as we speak.
Right. You know, we could go on and on and on here. There's so much to talk about, but suffice it to say, this is really important stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's going to guide development in the Heights for the next 20 years.
Yes, exactly, or longer.
Right. So one more thing we want to emphasize is the need for more community input. So even if you missed last week's meetings, you can still weigh in, correct? And you can do that online.
You can weigh in online. You can call Village Hall, you can call me, you can email me, you can come to our village board meetings and speak under public comment, but it's very important that all voices are heard.
So this is the web address. This is on the village's Facebook page, also on its regular website, and this is if you can just go there and you can click on this link, but here it is for any of you who are watching. It's a real short and simple. Go there, you can weigh in, you can tell us what you like, what you dislike, what you'd like to see change. This is really important. We'd like to see hundreds of you out there, you know, go online and talk about what you'd like to see your community become. So
that's what we're trying to do. You know, we're taking this show on the road, so to speak, and that's why we're doing old-fashioned things like a printed newsletter. That's why we're going out and having coffees, and we're doing some of the new technology through podcasts and social media. We're trying to reach people in as many ways as possible and make it easier for them. You know, not everyone wants to come to a public meeting and stand up in front of a camera and have to give their name. So we want to go out and in a more relaxed, informal setting and let people speak their mind. And sometimes, you know, there can be criticism, and that's okay. We don't always do everything right. Sometimes we make a mistake, and we want to try and get this right, and we want to do what the community wants.
Good. Mayor, thank you. That brings us to a close today. Again, we cannot stress enough how much we want your input, how much we need your input. So please go to the website and weigh in. And again, at this web address that we showed you earlier. So long for now, and remember to tune in to the next installment of Tower Talk.
Thank you.